Calling to order the Board of Education meeting for the Sacramento School Board. Superintendent, can we get a roll call real quick?
No, we did it already.
Oh, we did? Good. Okay, so we're going to do Pledge of Allegiance. Sorry about that, guys. Would you please stand?
Please stand.
Oh, hey. We'll wait for our member, Jean.
Yeah.
We're standing for member Jean.
Yes.
Superintendent?
Yes. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Beautiful. Okay, item 4.2, student broadcast statement.
This meeting of the Sacramento City School Board is being recorded in its entirety. It will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government's affairs channel on Comcast, Consolidated Communication, and AT&T Uverse. Today's meeting will air Sunday, February 19th at 6 p.m. and Monday, February 20th at 12 p.m. It will also be webcast at metro14live.saccounty.net and can be reviewed on Metro Cable's 14's YouTube channel. We welcome members of the audience to address the board. Please complete a speaker form located in the back of the community room and give them to our communications representatives, along with any handouts you may have for the board prior to the conclusion of the item's presentation. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. Please limit comments during public comments to items that are not on the agenda. If you do have a comment on the agenda, we will please ask you please defer your comments until the item comes up on the agenda. Please also turn off your cell phones or place them on silent or vibrate.
Thank you very much. Item 4.3, stellar student, introduced by MVP herself, Madam Vice President Phillips.
I love that name. Good evening. I have a big smile on my face because I want to introduce you this evening to Miss Alexandra Cabrera, an 11th grade student at American Legion. Alexandra, come on up. Hi. Alexandra enrolled at American Legion for the start of the 2022-23 school year. During her time at American Legion, she has excelled academically. So far this year, Alexandra has earned more credits than any other student at American Legion while achieving a GPA nearing 3.0. Through hard work and dedication to her studies, Alexandra has positioned herself to graduate early and begin pursuing a post-secondary degree in nursing. I got veins for you. In addition, Alexandra has been selected to accompany other Sacramento City Unified School District students on a trip to Southern California to visit UCLA later this school year. I want to say congratulations. Keep up the hard work. It takes a lot to even come up here and be accepted. I'm just excited, sorry. So. Congratulations, and we have a little plaque for you I'll bring up. And do you have anything that you want to share with us?
Yes, thank you. Good night. I'm honored to receive this award. I want to thank American Legion for giving me the opportunity to graduate early and for believing in me. I also want to thank all of you guys. I'm honored to be part of such a great district, and thank you for this award.
And Member Phillips, are we going to take a picture with her? Oh, beautiful. Okay.
Yeah, this is all for you. Good job. Okay.
Do I just open it up?
You can hold it or whatever you want to do. You're in charge. This is your day. This is your moment. Right. Thank you.
Okay, item 5.0, announcements of action taken in closed session.
Good evening, President Rhodes. There is one announcement out of closed session that will be given by the superintendent.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to announce that the board approved the following appointment this evening by a vote of 6-0 with board member Pritchett absent. The board approved the appointment of Mr. Marty Tatishi as principal of Crocker Riverside Elementary. Congratulations, Marty.
Thank you, Superintendent. Item 6.0, agenda adoption. Moved. Second. All in favor? Okay. Aye for everyone. Moving on to item 7.0, public comment. Do we have anybody?
President Rhodes, we have one speaker signed up. That is David Fisher with the SCTA report.
Okay. And once again, SCTA, we don't have your 15 minutes, but you guys have that time granted. We'll make sure that it's on there next time. Thank you. Welcome, David and Nikki. How are you guys doing this evening?
Great. I gotta start getting here on time. You guys are coming out of closed session right on the nose.
Right on time. Right on
Starting
time.
to become kind of a pattern.
Good pattern.
Good pattern, yes. So Nikki is handing out the presentation. So much of what I'll discuss or read tonight is in the text you receive. And we have a PowerPoint with just some visuals to kind of go along with it. So we're going to dedicate tonight's report to recruitment and retention. And as you recall, last spring, you might remember this little thing, an 8-day strike that we had here in Sac City. Out of that strike came several MOUs, and one of the agreements that we came out of included an agreement to form a joint recruitment and retention committee. The purpose of the work group, as in the language, is, quote, to review the school calendar, Article 8, vacancies, transfers, to address impediments to filling vacancies, staffing our schools, provide recommendations related to the recruitment and retention of certificate employees in the district. So the first meeting of that committee was finally held on January 23rd. Since then, the parties have met several times, including this afternoon. We've engaged in a series of constructive discussions regarding the recruitment and retention of certificated staff in SCUSD. There you see the agreement signed by myself and the superintendent. You see the commitment to begin negotiations by December, and also number 5 is the work group that I'm talking about. Based on the meetings, SCTA is proposing the following set of recommendations to guide the recruitment and retention work in the district. Number 1, Sac City must make among its absolute highest priorities that every student deserves to have a fully credentialed educator in the classroom, and that staff should reflect the diversity of our district and of our community in general. A school district obviously cannot provide high-quality instruction without high-quality educators. There remains a staffing crisis in SUSD. At the time this document was prepared, SUSD still had 126.75 full-time equivalent vacancies among certificated staff, among the highest vacancy rates among large urban school districts in the state of California. Addressing the staffing crisis needs to be among the highest priorities Sac City School Board has for the entire year. The significant staffing vacancies in Sac City are exacerbated by the lack of available substitute teachers to even provide temporary staff, and students cannot learn without teachers. Additionally, the staffing shortage creates a number of related issues. Shortages among classified staff mean that certificated staff and school site administrators have to absorb much of that work. In addition to the extra duties associated with certificated staff vacancies, the staffing shortages has contributed to a significant staff burnout and contributed to many educators leaving the profession sooner than they had originally intended, thereby exacerbating the situation. The recruitment and retention of certificated staff who reflect the diversity of the district has to be among the highest priorities of the district. Governor Newsom's January 2023 budget proposal, makes this an optimal time to focus on staff recruitment and retention. Governor Newsom has allocated billions to staff recruitment and retention. including the educator, $1.5 million to the Educator Effective Block Grant, $500 million to the Golden State Teacher Grant Program, $125 million for the Classified School Employee Teacher Credential Program, $600 million for the Teacher Residency Program, $250 million for the National Board Certification Incentive Program, and $24 million to waive certain teacher examination fees. So number 2, SCUSD needs to prioritize the staffing crisis. The crisis should be of high concern for administrators and, of course, the school board. We recommend that at least every month, the district provide a comprehensive report to the school board that details its progress in filling vacancies. The report should include the school site, the positions, the vacancies, the FTE status, and how long the position has been vacant. We also think there should be some baseline information, which includes several data points. The age, experience, beginning rate of pay, and credential and school site for SCUSD new hires. The same thing, age, experience, credential, school site for staff that have separated. The average age, years of experience, and rate of pay for current certificated staff. And the amount the district spends on outside contractors to fill the vacancies that Sac City has been unable to fill with regular staff. We also recommend that the district engage in a qualitative understanding of the staffing crisis in Sac City by conducting a series of focus groups/surveys to jointly develop with SCTA that would include categories and possible broad areas of inquiry. For example, new hires, questions like why did you choose to apply for Sac City, what attracted you, etc. Current employees, same thing, what do you like most about your work in Sac City, what do you like the least, etc. And then, of course, employees who recently separated from the district. Why did you leave the district? What, if anything, would have encouraged you to stay? Things like that. Number 3, Sac City has to be committed to pay competitive wages and benefits. For over 48 months, the district demanded a cut in the take-home pay of the average educator by about $10,000 per year. The district's unacceptable demands forced 2 strikes and created enormous distrust among certificated and classified staff with the district. The delayed wage reopener is an immediate opportunity to fix that. In 2023, the district's ongoing LCFF funding increased by over 13%. In 2023-24, Governor Newsom has proposed an additional increase of 8.13% in the cost of living adjustment. Now is the time to invest in today's students. The district should be prepared to address incentives to recruit and retain staff in particularly hard-to-fill positions. The district should also be prepared to use its considerable resources to improve student learning conditions, which, of course, are the certificated staff working conditions. Consistent with the proposals we'll be making during our reopener organizations, this means lowering class sizes, reducing the caseload of special education staff, improving support services to students, with the district reserve fund at historically high levels and state funding to education at its highest ever. Now is the time to invest in students. Now, for years, this conflict that we've had going on for these many years require immediate and significant steps to be able to move past. The improvements must be real and tangible. We want our coworkers to be able to recommend without reservation that Sac City is a great place to work. As it stands right now, many staff cannot in good conscience make such a recommendation. We want to change that. Some additional steps that are recommended. Professional development. There is no systematic, teacher-driven professional development in Sac City. I could go on for a while about this, but there just is not. We need to change that together. Principled recruitment, a code of ethical recruitment. So in recent years, the district's efforts at recruitment reflect its top-down, non-inclusive, administratively dominated style. Classroom teachers and other frontline staff have not been part of the district's recruitment team to any of the job fairs, the hiring expos, or recruitment visits to either historically black colleges and universities or overseas, example, the Philippines. To provide the highest opportunity of success, the district should make every effort to work with SCTA to ensure that certificated staff with direct experience in SUSD classrooms are part of the district's recruitment teams. In addition, and in particular with staff who are recruited from out of state or even out of the country, the district should develop policies and practices that protect the interests of the staff who are being recruited and avoid any hint of exploitation or deception. To this, the school board should adopt the, quote, Code of Ethical International Recruitment and Employment of Teachers, end quote, a set of guidelines developed by representatives of leading education advocates, including National Association of State Boards of Education, American Association of School Administrators, National Education Association, and others. The district also should establish this code should be applied when applicable to recruits from outside the state. Number 6, outreach to the California State University, Sacramento, Sac State, College of Education, and other college and universities of education. In the past, we've worked very constructively with Sac City's Human Resource Department and faculty from CSU Sacramento to develop the region's largest educator or prospective certificated staff recruitment for our district. The reopener provides an opportunity to reinstill a culture of trust, which would include direct outreach to educators in surrounding institutions of higher learning, particularly Sac State. With the support of several Sac State education professors, we made presentations to education classes a few years ago, and most notably, jointly sponsored an extremely well-attended open house to showcase Sac City as a prospective employer to a soon-to-be graduating class of Sac State students. That's the kind of thing we need to do again. We have begun to outreach to the professors of Sac State, but our potential for success will be greatly enhanced if pursued jointly with the district. Number 7, we'd like to establish a high school to teaching position pathway. Relatedly, back in the spring of 2017, we began to hold a series of meetings with top administrators at Los Rios Colleges and California State University, Sacramento, to discuss the creation of a high school to teacher pipeline that would provide support to current SCUSD students who may be interested in a teaching career. In exchange for the ongoing support, students would commit to return to work in Sac City for a period of time, where they would be ensured a position upon graduation. We think such a program would be greatly enhance the district's ability to recruit and retain staff from our district and who reflect the diversity of our district. Number 8, the Classified School Employee Teacher Credential Program. As mentioned in the introduction, Governor Newsom has budgeted $125 million to facilitate a career advancement of classified staff to certificated staff. We'll be working with our coworkers in SEIU Local 1021 to encourage full use of this program and look forward to developing additional support for staff who may be willing to embark on such a career change. Number 9, robust new teacher orientation and support. The district new teacher orientation has sometimes felt like an afterthought. It should be an opportunity to make a long-lasting impression with a highly professional, well-organized introduction to the district. The engaged, active participation of the superintendent and other top administrators would have significant impact. Student teachers. We have 130 approximately student teachers in the district. What a resource, right? State funding provides a modest stipend for a limited number through the teacher residency program. Once again, in the past, we did specific outreach to student teachers in the district to hear directly from them what their experience working in the district has been and to understand potential impediments to coming to work in Sac City post-graduation. We know we can be more focused with this group of student teachers who are already here in the district, including having town halls, receptions, and other outreach with the student teachers. Streamlining the hiring process and assisting employees in just getting hired. The district needs to make its process user-friendly, encouraging and responsive to new candidates. Every step of the journey, from soliciting applicants to onboarding to pay scale placement and providing new employees with the knowledge and tools should be improved so that educators can be successful from their first day at work. And then finally, number 12, credentialing issues. So due to the competitive market for credentialed teachers, especially in the areas of high needs, the district has many candidates still working to complete their necessary California credentials. Communication regarding the requirements and specific steps to meet those requirements needs to be clear. So there you have it. That's more or less our 12-step plan for recruitment and retention. We are highly motivated to work with the district to make SUSD the destination district for students and for staff. And we look forward to work with the school board towards that end. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, David. Okay, going to item 8.
President Rose, we do have one more public comment.
Okay,
April Ibarra recognized for 4 minutes. John Borsos gave her his time.
sounds great. April, how are you doing? April, guess what? I bet you didn't believe that we were going to be on time. So then you came a little bit later. But look, we got you that time, but welcome to the front. Yeah.
Okay. Good evening. Good evening, board members and superintendent. I'm a little out of breath because I was literally running here. So this evening, I wanted to give public comment once again on community schools. As you all know, I'm very passionate about that. I previously gave you all a copy with exception to the new board members of the trailer bill for community schools. And I previously called out the need for collaborative work with SCTA, with the community, but yet there has been a failure to hear not just my concerns, but others that have come up here. With that said, I am very concerned about how the evaluation and assessment process is taking place currently. I want to know how you are ready to ask students and guardians about their experience in the district. If the district hasn't done enough to educate communities and students on what community schools are and what supports they should be looking out for. So I don't understand how, now you're asking, is this stuff working for you? The other thing I wanted to bring up is that you did recently update your website on a lot of the information that should be made public, which I am thankful for. However, your staff at your schools are still just learning about what community schools are. There's not a clear understanding to them yet on what that exactly means for them. So I want to talk about some of your areas. So Board Member Villa, you have Wilsey Wood and Fern Bacon, who are both community schools recipients. And I just want to ask all of you, and I don't want to just single out one of you, what you're doing to learn about the schools in your area. And so with that said, Wilsey Wood recently held a listening session, and only one parent showed up. So that's concerning for me. I know that in SIPSAs, typically the schools will list parent engagement. Usually they use their cafes that they do in the middle schools and high schools, but yet that's still, the turnout on that is not enough for you to be able to do assessments and evaluations. So I'm just wondering, how is the district engaging with those families outside of that? Board Member Rhodes, same question goes for you for Luther, Burbank, Johnsdale, and Rosa Parks. Just wondering how you're supporting those communities and ensuring that their voices are being heard. And I just recently learned as I'm meeting families that you guys at Rosa, and I shouldn't say you guys, Rosa Parks has gone through approximately 8 admins since Corey Jones has left. And so that's deeply concerning for me because it demonstrates that no one is caring about the community enough to really dig deep and see how we can retain and recruit admin for that school. And Judge Jeet, I know that you just came into your position and you're still kind of getting to know your schools, but same thing with Johnson. An email was recently sent out to a teacher, to teachers, to all of the teachers, asking them to recruit students. And so the email was concerning for me because they called out to specifically look for students with leadership and maturities as strong points. And so my daughter has an IEP, and I can tell you she has a wealth of things to say about how she feels about her support, and she doesn't meet that criteria. So she's not the only one, and that's concerning for me. And I know I only have 24 seconds, but I'm going to close with this. As we celebrate Black History Month, let's really reflect on how the district is doing and how they have done in recruiting and retaining Black teachers and administration in our district. SUSD has previously, and I'm not sure if currently, contracted with UCAN to set up our HR to recruit teachers from historically Black colleges, yet we have been unsuccessful in retaining them. So this is concerning, especially when you have less than 10% of our teachers being Black. That's not okay. And one more thing, in the recent years, you've lost some of your Black admins, like Faye Sharp and Gail Johnson, who both retired, but then you also lost Corey Jones and Tarek McFall, and I'm talking about the recent years, to surrounding districts, neighbor districts. And let's not forget Dr. Elise Verscher, who left because she was not supported adequately when she was faced with harassment. So let's just try as a district and as a board to really ensure we're retaining the few Black teachers and admins that we have. And please, please be intentional about hiring some more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, April. And so these are items that, you have a question? You can ask me in a bit. I need to know who sent that. Yes. We can follow up on that. Okay, so going to item 8.1, special presentation, National Eating Disorder Awareness Resolution. Hello.
Hey there, it's working. Hi there. Good evening, Board President Rhodes, Superintendent, members of the board. My name is Victoria Flores. I serve as your Executive Director of Student Support and Health Services. I did not bring a PowerPoint tonight. Just wanted to highlight a couple of items about National Eating Disorder Awareness Week. It is February 27th through March 5th this week. And this is a week where we can really raise awareness of eating disorders, how early detection, intervention, and awareness really can make a positive difference. 28.8 million Americans will be impacted sometime in their life with an eating disorder. And we know that they are among the deadliest disorders, but it's very stigmatized and something we don't really readily talk about. We also know it co-occurs with things like depression and anxiety. And if you saw on the news, I believe just yesterday, the CDC released that youth risk behavior survey. So it looks at 2011 to 2021. We saw a significant rise across all groups in depression and anxiety. So we know we really need to keep our eyes open on all of these topics. Eating disorders also affect every age, race, size, gender identity, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic background, and really are increasing in younger ages as well. We see this in children as young as 6 and older. We know over 1/2 of adolescent girls and about 1/3 of adolescent boys will engage in some kind of weight control behavior like skipping meals or fasting. And so these are the things we really want to watch. And while eating disorders are treatable, we want to give hope for folks. When they're diagnosed early, they're often misunderstood and deeply stigmatized. And so this is something we really want to highlight and just start to notice and talk about, right? Much like we do with suicide. We also know, and I'm just any of my teacher colleague friends, what it's like when you have a kiddo in your class who's hungry. They don't learn well. They're distracted, as are adults, right? And so we know that that's deeply impacting their learning. So at the end of our resolution, we say now, therefore, be it resolved that the Sacramento City Unified School District Board of Education recognizes the importance of supporting the health and well-being of students, has undertaken efforts leveraging those COVID funds, which we are actively doing right now, to expand social, emotional, and physical and mental health staffing to address the needs of our students, to raise the mental and physical health awareness, and to provide the support and resources to students experiencing health challenges and their families. So just want to give a shout out to all of our student, colleagues who work in the classroom, as well as all of those student support colleagues, social workers, nurses, psychologists, counselors, right? All of us working together to notice, intervene, and support our families. So we respectfully ask that the board passes Resolution 3307.
Thank you so much for bringing this forward. Do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Okay, do we have any board discussions? Please, if you have something, please line up in the queue. No one? Do we have? You'll move it? Do we have a second? Second, okay. Superintendent, action roll call vote.
Thank you. Member Villa?
Yes.
Member Jean?
Aye.
Member Rhodes?
I'm sorry. Student preferential before everything else. I apologize.
No, it's fine. Aye.
Okay, now superintendent.
Thank you. Yes. Member Rhodes?
Aye.
Member Singh?
Aye.
Member Phillips? Aye. Member Kayada?
Aye.
That over?
Yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And then also, we have here a resolution. So I think we're gonna come down, guys, take a picture with Micah here. Let's do it.
Thank you. That's so lovely. That's fun as the student pictures. Come on over.
I know, I just always go to the same spot.
I know, it's about seeing people. Sorry, professional.
Thank you.
Good job.
Okay. Item 8.2, building academic office coherence to support student achievement. Ms. Wright, hello. Good evening.
Good evening, Board Member Rhodes, Superintendent Aguilar, members of the board. My name is Yvonne Wright, and I'm the Chief Academic Officer, and it is a pleasure to be here tonight to bring this presentation to you. This presentation is entitled Building Greater Academic Office Coherence to Improve Student Outcomes, and it is really the focus of my work as your Chief Academic Officer. Within this slide, you have received a list of acronyms that may be used tonight, but I will do my best to really be explicit about the language so that you don't have to use the acronyms. I'm going to talk about tonight the implication of student outcomes. I will share with you some data that you've seen before, but the data is not being shared for you to analyze that data, but for me to really talk about the implications of that data to my work and to my team's work. I also want to talk about the SCUSD's strategic priority areas and the academic office coherence, and what are our next steps, and allow you an opportunity to ask some questions and to answer those questions. You already know the core values and the guiding principle. Our work and our actions towards improving outcomes for students are rooted in the core value and guiding principle. So I want to take the opportunity to begin with these slides from the last presentation. When I presented these slides at our last board meeting, it was clearly evident that you had seen these slides or this achievement data before. There were no surprises. I heard concern around the data, and I also heard it's time to take action. I also felt concern around the data. I was deeply concerned about persistent achievement gaps and student performance. As your Chief Academic Officer, my role is to review, analyze, guide the team towards making strategic actions to impact student outcomes in a positive way. So as I discuss these slides tonight, I will raise questions as implications for our work in improving those outcomes. When I see this particular slide, I think about gaps in student achievement. It makes me curious about teaching and learning in the classroom and what our students experience on a daily basis. I also think about the gap that persists even when we control for factors like suspension, socioeconomic status, attendance, and there is still a significant difference in achievement. The question I pose to you today is there a system-wide understanding of high-quality instruction? Have we as a system identified what are the elements of high-quality instruction? And then how are we promoting a culture of collective teacher efficacy to ensure the success of all students? I also think about, is instruction culturally responsive? And I pose that question because of the fact that it's the only variable in this data is race. And is there a tiered system of supports when students are not performing at the levels that we expect them to perform? This achievement gap is very interesting to me, the feedback gap. And it's not a gap that we often think about or talk about. And the reason why this gap is really important and that I think it's something we should pay attention to is because the research bears out that feedback has double the impact that regular teaching strategies has on student achievement. And if that is so, and we know that it is underutilized with our Black and African American students and our students experiencing homelessness, how do we ensure all students system-wide have frequent opportunities for effective and actionable feedback? In addition, that feedback that they're receiving is based on a standard that everyone is held to. The next student outcome that I shared with you was around grades. The grade in particular that we talked about was English grades. And what this demonstrates is that students whose primary and first language is English were receiving English grades, passing English grades at a lower percentage than students whose first language was something other than English. This makes me wonder and think about what causes that problem. And not that our students who were EL by definition are faring significantly better, but what causes this difference in students' grades as an indicator of meeting standards in this way? Is that a function of quality instruction? Oops, what happened? Oh. And lastly, when we talk about behavior tolerance gaps, it brings to my attention mindsets, but it also brings to my attention unconscious bias. Biases that we don't know that we have. And what it speaks to me is that there is a need to focus on culturally responsive practices, providing professional learning so that we're aware of those biases and that we account for them in our practices in the classroom. Which brings me to the strategic priorities. We have 5 strategic priorities. And what I know about the strategic priorities is that I think we are headed in the right direction. This is the right work. And if you listen to the questions that surfaced during the review of the data, you'll see the connection in the first 3 priorities. High quality instruction to meet the needs of all students with a focus on students least well served. A multi-tiered system of supports so that when students are not meeting with success, as early as possible, we provide supports for students. And culturally responsive professional learning. As your Chief Academic Officer, it is important for you to know that I believe that improving teaching and learning is a district-wide is a system problem. And it will take improving the capacity of all leaders to improve teaching and learning. I've had the opportunity and the experience in working in many districts, and I've seen districts struggle because of initiative overload and fragmentation and departments working in silos. I know that my leadership must be different. The key to bring about successful change and impact student learning, it will be about coherence. I love Fullen's statement about coherence. What stands out in my mind, some key words, is purposeful action and interaction and working on capacity. My role as Chief Academic Officer will be to bring coherence in the departments that I'm working with. The academic office is made up of many departments, many people. I want to talk to you about 5 key departments in the academic office. And those offices are early learning and care, the instructional assistant superintendents, multilingual literacy, curriculum and instruction, and special education. And this graphic represents how those departments work. Those offices work with connections. There are connections between their work. And in the center of that is the focus, student achievement. These departments do great work independently, but they also do good work extremely well with working with cross-departmentally. My goal is to achieve their work in this manner. Working together with and among all departments, bringing coherence to the work. There are connections across all departments in our priority areas with the focus on student achievement. There are also other departments that support the work of these 5 departments. Those departments are on the outer edge of that circle. And yes, their work is highly dependent on the departmental work too, and that will be phase 2 of my work, to bring those departments in. Not that we won't do that now, we do have those opportunities where we share in their work, we consult and collaborate. But the focus will be, for now, my first priority is to bring together the work of these 5 departments. This graphic is symbolic of using a systems approach to implement change, to solve problems, to provide integration across departments because of their connectedness and interdependency. I want to give you an example of how we will build that coherence, or how the work is connected. And I will take our first priority, high quality instruction. So linking high quality instruction, you'll see the work of curriculum and instruction and professional learning. Major buckets of their work is about building that common definition and understanding of high quality instruction, providing culturally and linguistically responsive professional learning. Currently, we're engaged with work with EPIC around culturally responsive professional learning. We're also focused on multi-tiered system of supports, so bringing some work, how do we support students as early as possible to ensure that they are learning. How do the instructional assistant superintendents support the work of high-quality instruction? The instructional assistant superintendents work with our principals. They work with our principals and support schools by spending time in schools, visiting classes, and assessing implementation. Not just visiting classrooms,
No, please continue.
not just visiting classrooms, but really observing with site principals, looking at the instructional core, teaching and learning happening, and then coaching the principal around improving instruction. Coaching the principal and providing ongoing feedback on instructional needs, the learning environment, and how to support their instructional staff. And then meeting with groups of principals for collaboration around common problems, common issues, problem solving, thought partnership. Special education is a significant, it's a critical partner in our work in high quality instruction. Ensuring that students are receiving instruction and services in alignment with their IEP goals and least restrictive environment, but also helping to communicate to general education the needs of students who they'll be serving in their classrooms, and helping them to understand how to best serve students and provide instruction that students will be responsive to. Proper assessment and identification for students. The way to know when students are in need and more intensive services from special education. Multilingual instruction. Ensuring that students are properly identified as English language learners, as well as monitoring their progress towards English language proficiency. Looking at instruction, designated and integrated ELD, supporting the integration of designated ELD instruction, and professional learning that is necessary to support English language learners in the classroom. And early learning and care. Early learning and care is really responsible for the development of a continuum of learning pre-K through 2. Developing and selecting a transitional kindergarten curriculum that is appropriate, that is based on the California Preschool Foundations, aligned to the kindergarten standards, that is developmentally appropriate. Its social-emotional development is taken into consideration, but also the learning environments. All of our departments work together to support and implement an instructional program that is high quality. I hope to bring about an atmosphere and a culture where collective efficacy among our educators, and it refers to their shared belief that through their collective action, that they can influence student outcomes and increase achievement for all. So how can we align our work and build collective efficacy? And this will be an enduring question for our departments. As we work together, collaborate together in our structures, we'll answer this question. What do you need to support this work? So my work will be working to create structures that support coherence. Currently, I engage in one-on-ones weekly with my direct reports. We also have a structure for our instructional assistant superintendent collaboration. Direct reports also have a structure for collaboration. And what that collaboration looks like is we're coming to the table talking about their work. How does their work intersect? What do they need from other departments to do their work? And then we have the academic office team collaboration, where the assistant superintendents, directors, coordinators, and training specialists come together. Some of the activities that we hope to engage in to deepen their work is to engage in consultancy protocols in which the departments highlight work that they're doing. And then they talk about that work, describe the work, talk about maybe problems they're encountering. They share that, and then other departments give feedback and talk about how they can support the work. And then those teams then ask for support from different departments. And then we come back together to learn from each other and apply it to the other department work. Next steps. So phase one, as I stated, was to formally integrate the work of the academic office and departments, and that's curriculum and instruction, early learning and care, the instructional assistant superintendents, and multilingual literacy and special education. Phase two is to formally integrate the work of departments that have operated outside of the academic office. And we also know that there are other offices that support the work of the academic office. And lastly, what is not on this slide is that you'll be hearing board presentations from the academic office that's going to give you a much clearer picture of each of the departments' work and work of how other departments support that work. And that will be coming in upcoming presentations.
Thank you so much. Before we go to my colleagues, do we have any public comment?
We do not.
I heard somebody say what? Do we have any public comment?
You said facilities master plan is what you wrote here.
If we can clarify, that's fine. We can figure it out. Okay. Ms. Ibarra, if you can change your card, if you would like to speak. Whatever's clever. We'll give your comment, fine, and then you can change your card to a different time.
I was trying to be quick.
No problem. Thank you.
So great.
Thank you again.
Thank you for that presentation. I am happy to hear that the district is moving towards some of the things that many community members have spoken about. I just want to talk about how exactly the intention is going to be made on high-quality professional developments. There was a lot of very fancy words out there, but really what is the intention behind that, and how do you know that it's going to be effective? What are you looking at outside of data? Because I know firsthand that EPIC, which was part of the 3-day PD that the teachers or professionals that are with the kids get in August, EPIC is part of that, but they also informed the district that they needed more than that allotted time to work with staff for that to be meaningful. So what are we doing about that, right? The other thing is, when do you include your teachers and admin at the school sites in deciding what their needs are as far as professional development? There is a dire need for a more robust professional development, maybe even department in our district, because you have lots of admin with the experience, lots of teachers with the experience to build within our own district and really make something meaningful that's going to be relevant to our district. Also, how are you supporting admin outside of offering PD on MTSS? What ongoing support or professional development is happening? Because I can tell you right now, I've had instances where I've had to ask the teacher, how did we get to this point? What tiers did you go through before we got escalated all the way to the top of the MTSS system? I shouldn't have to ask teachers that in a situation where they're addressing behavior, but it's not their fault because they're not given the tools and resources needed behind that MTSS training that you guys gave. Also with special education, they don't even have enough teachers or aides. My daughter has an IEP. She's supposed to have individualized teaching. She still hasn't received that. Thank you.
Thank you. And then, April, if you could check in with Brian real quick. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you for your words. Now going to my colleagues, we have some folks in the queue already. So we're going to go to Member Singh.
Hi, Ms. Wright. So first of all, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the presentation. I'm excited about especially like the 5 strategic priorities that you listed. And kind of overlapping on what Ms. Ibarra just said, but probably thinking about a larger picture. I do see that when you bring up ideas of collective efficacy, what really goes to me right away is that we're all in this together. We have district staff, and then we have our teachers, right? And I really want to see if there's, earlier, I think during the presentation from SCTA, they cited some ideas that they had that could work to improve student outcomes. I would love to see what I've seen in other districts, what I've read about, and I'm obviously no expert, but I get excited about these things, is I have seen collaboration between districts and their labor partners, and I would love to see some collaboration and conversation that you possibly could have, sit down with SCTA, and kind of report back to us about maybe some collective ideas. Maybe there's overlap. I think I heard some stuff around the strategic priorities, but when I think about our educators coming together to work together to help our students, then I hear teachers, I hear SCTA, and I also hear you. And I feel like there's a really great opportunity here, and you're new, and I'm excited about your leadership, and I really would like to see some collaboration and would love to know your thoughts on working together with them.
Thank you for the comment. I do believe that educators includes everyone in the room in support of student learning. I'm open to collaboration, and I think that it takes the perspective of many to solve the problems that we have. I think it's a part of accountability when we all take ownership of what exists and be willing to move forward to impact the problem, right? So I'm open to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have MVP herself, Member Phillips.
Hi, Ms. Wright. I was looking at this picture. So the systems approach that we want to use, maybe I'm anti-reform, because I truly believe that there are some significant issues in the system that we have. So where we are now, we have a system that's not working. I really just want to honestly tell you, I want you to be comfortable knowing that that system needs to be torn apart, ripped apart, shredded, imploded, whatever we need to do so that we can find the pieces that are working and replace them with what you're saying. So I know that there are deficits, and I don't have a problem at all saying that, as a district, we are definitely failing our students. I am encouraged by your willingness to collaborate. I am encouraged by the fact that you see that there's change that not only needs to apply some of the other acronyms that we have, like MTSS and, all those other things, but I want you to feel encouraged to know that you have the support of myself and hopefully my colleagues to tear this down in a way that's going to be rebuilt to help our students, and recognizing those disparities. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I just want to make sure that me and my colleagues have a firm understanding that this is not an easy job. And you are here to do a very difficult job, and working with, our labor partners and especially our dear staff. And, I just want to make sure that you know that I personally am very comfortable with the tearing down of a system that is not working. And we have seen all the statistics and all the numbers that you put in the very beginning are, yeah, that's true. That has been true. So, when it comes to tearing things up, let's continue to do that. And I really want to make sure that my colleagues hear me say that. I think I said it 4 times. But it's extremely important that we recognize that your job is because you're doing your job with your expertise to be able to make sure that we have a system that focuses on student outcomes. So I appreciate this. I'm excited to hear about what's coming next. So thank you very much for this presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, MVP. Member Kayada.
So first, for the record, just would like to re-up what Member Phillips just said. You have my full support to tear down what needs to be broken down. We know, as you said, that there's so much that is systemically broken. I am very excited to hear what you've described essentially as your phase 1. I'm looking forward to hearing from other department heads about how we can roll this out. And if your passion to them is as clear as it is to us tonight, I'm sure they're going to be fully buying into this process. My question for kind of phase 2, I guess, is similar to one that I raised last time you were here. And you mentioned something, and I wish I had wrote it down, something about initiative overload or something like, but it seems in my experience with this district that we have even the most well-laid plans, and even with full buy-in at CERNA, they never seem to make it to the classroom. And if they're not in the classroom, we're not going to affect these students. We're not going to make these changes we need. The best laid plans will die on the vine. So I know we're not here yet, so not a critique, but I'm really looking forward to hearing about what we're doing to get this permeated down where it needs to be to actually make changes in student lives, whether that's cooperating with labor, whether that's working with school sites, whatever it may be, and you're the expert. I'm just looking forward to hearing from that, in one of your future presentations. But generally, really supportive of what you're doing, really glad to have you here, and looking forward to the work we're going to be able to do. And let's tear it down if we need to, so that we can build it back right.
If I may, I just want to make a brief comment for both. I appreciate the support, and I just want to say that what attracted me to Sac City Unified School District was not just the fact that I attended Sac City Public Schools, not just the fact that, it's home, but when I display the core value and guiding principle, it has meaning to me much more than just the words on the page. It is about my experiences as a student, positive, but underneath the surface of that water, that glacier, there was an equal negative experience. I had the opportunity to I took a course in college called Teaching Reading in the Elementary School, Dr. Marilyn Peters, Cosumnes River College. And taking that course, I had to work in an elementary school. I worked at, and I don't know if I should name the school, but it was Susan B. Anthony. I attended Luther Burbank, so as a student in the school, you don't see from that lens. But when you go into the school and you work, you see disparities. You see inequalities. That's when I decided I wanted to be a teacher. So when the district acknowledges those inequities and develops a guiding principle based on the inequities, that's huge to me. And when we say we want to interrupt, and I heard you both say dismantle, I think that is a starting point. And I think that we can collectively agree that we have a lot of work to do, but we have the willingness of a group of educators. And when I say educators, I'm not limiting that to teachers, principals, district leadership, but as a collective, we can solve this issue. Thank you.
Member Villa.
First of all, I want to say thank you for sharing that, because that's a great perspective to have of what you experienced at that school, and now you're in this role. This is a very heavy load, and I appreciate that you gave that insight, because you get it, and you get our frustration because you feel it too. So I appreciate that. I just wanted to say a quick few things. Thank you for this. Obviously, it's still challenging to see, but I know, again, the work's being done. You know, for myself, I've popped into my schools and I've seen, you know, April maybe twice in a week sometimes at different folks. So I know that you guys are on the ground and talking. I've been in principals' offices just catching up, and it's immediate. Oh, I've got a meeting with this person. And I know that you guys are really taking the time to go in there and collaborate and work with those individuals to do better. So I know I see that work being done. I've been kicked out of a principal's office because they had a meeting, and I appreciate that. Moving forward, I would love to see in these kind of presentations, and maybe another one that we could throw on the agenda in the future, is these departments coming and giving presentations similar to this, but I would like to see specifics. Give me examples, give me challenges, give me solutions, give me goals, give me what they're seeing, because I want to hear from you, but I also want to hear from the folks that are seeing these things so we can help support those efforts. And again, it's just hearing those kind of direct incidents or things that are happening. I'd like to have those kind of presentations brought to this board. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Villa. Now, Member Jean.
I suppose I need a mic, don't I? And thanks for going back to the slide. This was the one I was going to ask for. I've got like 5 questions, so bear with me. The first one, I was looking at that pink box on the bottom. Combining curriculum instruction and professional learning is a really big combination. So can you talk a little bit about like why those are combined together? And are we thinking about maybe having a separate professional learning space in C&I, or maybe one that, I don't know, that feels like there's a lot going on there?
So professional learning, from my observation, the time that I've been here, it's called curriculum and instruction. But through our theory of action, we have committed to developing a professional learning plan. Not that professional learning will be the sole responsibility of curriculum and instruction. And Superintendent, if I'm misspeaking, let me know. And we kind of talked about this with the departments, that professional learning lives in each of the departments.
Yes.
There's department-specific professional learning. But professional learning that is around our key priorities is going to be developed out of curriculum instruction and instruction.
Okay. Well, and that makes sense. I was looking at the last slide as well and saw it just said C&I, it didn't have professional learning. So it's more, you added it here to indicate that's the work they're focusing on right now.
Yes.
Okay. Next, we've been hearing a lot about community schools, and I've also heard about the Amazing Home Visits program, and I didn't see them listed on anything here. Are those part of this, or are those separate programs?
Yeah, they are, Member Jean, and I actually wanted to highlight slide 13 just because this is the first iteration of our effort to try to display through an infographic sort of the design in our thinking that the integration and interdependence that we see as being necessary will involve many of these departments, but there are other departments. Some of them are smaller. And so it's an incomplete infographic because it doesn't have all of them. It doesn't have the FACE department, which is our family and community engagement, which we also think is an area where we have to be much more integrated and much more. Oh, it is there.
It is there,
FACE department. I think there's student attendance is also there, chronic absenteeism work. So we will continue to have other versions of this. What I did want to, because I know you have a few other questions, I did want to just make sure that as I hear board members expressing their support of Yvonne Wright as our new CAO, just to keep in mind that this infographic is much easier to design than it will be to implement. There is a long-standing history and culture in Sac City Unified of amazingly powerful work taking place by different departments, but largely being done by themselves. And so this idea that we envision greater integration and greater interdependence all coming into the fold and impacting student achievement. Ms. Wright mentioned this first effort involving the core of this infographic, our special education, our IAS principal supervision infrastructure, our early learning and care, multilingual, our CNI. That in and of itself is going to be a huge task, let alone then bringing in to the fold all of these other programs and all of these other departments that, again, organizationally don't all even fall under Ms. Wright's portfolio. And so all of those things are going to be efforts that we want to continue to work on. But I'm inspired by just seeing the first iteration of this infographic, but please keep in mind that this is a lot easier to design than to implement.
I guess my thought in response to what you just shared, Superintendent, is while you're talking about things we can't get everything on here, the things that got on here were chosen and were seen as priorities, and things that are super important were left off that I've heard about, and that I want to make sure that we're being inclusive of all the parts that can be important, particularly like with community schools when $11 million has come in with that. Like, that needs to be part of all of this work. My next big question is in the blue box. Can you help me understand instructional assistant superintendents? Like, what exactly is their role?
So our instructional assistant superintendents, and so I'm going to use this term, but I know some of them don't like it.
Okay, thank you for that.
So it is like the principal supervisor, but they do more than supervise. It's not about supervision and evaluation only. It's about coaching, supporting, and helping to build the capacity of site leaders. Was that helpful?
That was incredibly helpful, which leads to my next question. As I was looking at, so now I'm scoring forward to your breakdown of if we look at high quality instruction in each of these areas. I did notice that the word principal was used multiple times, but there wasn't anything about educators. And I'm thinking about like high quality instruction are predominantly delivered by teachers. And the only place in these pages that I saw the word teachers was under SPED. And so it was just kind of, that feels like there's a missing something there. So is there a second part of this that it's, how are we also making sure teachers are part of this process?
So let me go back in the slide for a second so that I can respond to that. So when we talk about curriculum instruction, building a common definition and an understanding of high quality instruction, that is not just someone sitting in the Office of Curriculum Instruction and saying, this is high quality instruction, and these are the indicators, let's disseminate this out to educators. It's everyone collectively building an understanding of high quality instruction. From teachers, principals, district leadership, cultivating that understanding so that everyone buys into what we see as the system definition of high quality instruction.
Have you gotten to a point of what the process is to make sure we're being inclusive and bringing in voices of classroom teachers and paraprofessionals that are, delivering the instruction and supporting these kiddos closely? Do we have a process for that collaboration, building committees, or is that the place we're starting?
I can interject real quickly, Member Jean, to your question, and we failed to bring this back just because I think it's important to keep bringing the same slides. If you remember in our theory of action, one of the statements of if we then includes that if we empower site leaders to engage staff in creating site-based, district-aligned instructional frameworks tied to our school plan for student achievement, our SIPSA, among other
then our site leaders will have the capacity to implement and monitor effective Tier 1 instruction practices within our MTSS structure. So it is with staff.
So I've got a big thought in my brain about this, and I don't have great words for it yet. Even in the description you just gave, Superintendent, it's about site leaders doing stuff to staff. It's about site leaders being trained to tell the teachers what to do. It doesn't feel like an inclusive, the experts of high quality instruction are those who've been doing it for their entire careers. And yes, do we need to learn? I will claim that. I want to go to the trainings. I want to get the supports. And the best learning I ever get is deep conversations with colleagues. And that's never been more true than this year when these kiddos are coming out of COVID and in a totally different space. I've taught juniors for over a decade, and the 16-year-old babies I'm teaching right now, and they're not babies, they're young men and women, yes? The way I'm teaching them now, it's not what it has been. And the collaboration I have with us on the ground, talking it out, and the supports that I need is completely invaluable. And I'm not hearing that piece of it. Where teachers and paras and campus monitors and all of those that are making this happen are part of the process, part of the plan, part of the system development. And I don't know what that looks like yet, but I'm concerned because I'm not hearing it.
In my discussion with curriculum and instruction, the assistant superintendent, it's about site leaders creating conditions and structures to facilitate teachers in that process. That has to begin somewhere.
Yes.
Right. And so it's not that they're telling them and giving it to them and saying, this is what it is. But they have to engage them in that work, facilitating a process and creating the conditions for them to develop that.
Which then means we're talking working conditions, which is bargaining.
No, it's not talking, I'm using the word conditions.
You are,
but
yes.
Keep creating the conditions in which people can engage in collective work and create a product together, right? And agreeing upon making commitments to the work.
Okay. Thank you for that. I guess the last piece is I was looking at our 5 strategic priorities again. And what I'm so thankful for is that the conversations I've had with staff, with our communities, and I think here on the board recognizes that we have a heart for the importance of these priorities. And I just want to emphasize kind of where Just G started us. Sorry, member saying started us. How do we collaborate together? How do we work together? Going back, and this will be my final comment, going back to the quote you had here about collective efficacy, that it's collective action, that all educators, and I'm with you. I love the word educator because the truth is every single one of us that is a part of this process is working towards the goal of education. And we all own that. So yes, I'm all about the partnership and collaboration with it all. And thank you, this was excellent, and you got my brain going in lots of really fun ways. I'm excited.
Thank you, Member Jean. I'll be very brief. I just like to say that thank you for bringing this forward. And you know, it's easy to look at the data, and in our systems we look at the data and kind of get addicted to looking at data and saying and telling what's the issue, what's the problem, and being experts around why. But today we get to look at not only the problem but move past to the possibilities. And I'm very happy to hear about, yes, the problems, but also the possibilities where we can go together. So this was an informational item only, so you can take your seat. Thank you so much. Okay. No, not that one? Yeah, we're done. Okay, so we're going to go to 8.3, Facilities Master Plan Equity Index Update. Ms. Ramos, and I don't see Ms. Ramos. Oh, there you are. Oh, sorry. I saw Nathaniel coming up, and I was like, that's not Ramos, and you know.
And President Rhodes, if I could just, as our team is coming to the podium, I'm going to ask our board just to see if we can put ourselves in a position where you see a connection between Ms. Wright's presentation and talking about student outcomes and inequities we see in student outcomes, and then connecting that to the world of facilities and how we see some inequities that also impact student outcomes. So if you could see this as a related set of presentations, because that was our intention.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, President Rhodes, board members, superintendent. Tonight presenting the Facility Master Plan Equity Index Update is Nathaniel Browning and Chris Ralston from Facilities. I'll turn it over to staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Ramos. Good evening, President Rhodes, Superintendent Aguilar, board members. I'm Nathaniel Browning, and with me I have my colleague, Mr. Chris Ralston, and today we are here to give you an update on our Facilities Master Plan Equity Index. And as the superintendent said, this is very much intentional to follow behind Chief Wright as well. So here, again, are our core values and guiding principle. And they are absolutely the foundation of what we are doing in facilities. They guide our work on a daily basis. Here are the acronyms that you'll see throughout the presentation. And here's this evening's agenda for this presentation. So I want to start with grounding us in what a facilities master plan is. It's a collection of data that serves as a basis for planning future facilities improvements within the district. It provides a rationale and prioritization to the school community and the public for the use of capital project funds. And data most readily utilized in traditional facilities master plans relies on current facilities conditions and the enrollment or capacity of those programs and those facilities. Traditional facilities master plans can also focus on academic programming options as well at sites such as career technical education or other such offerings. Unfortunately, though, traditional methods of facilities master plan can lead to the prioritization of capital projects in affluent neighborhoods that have enrollment growth, while historically marginalized neighborhoods witness continued disinvestment and enrollment declines due to the draw of those other schools in those highly resourced neighborhoods. So here at Sac City, we decided to take a different approach with our core value and guiding principle guiding the way. As I stated, campus assessments are a hallmark of the traditional facilities master planning process, but it is still an important component in our facilities master planning process as well. However, it is secondary, and I repeat, it is secondary to the equity index for the identification of major renovation or school replacement projects, as I'll explain in the coming slides. Such assessments are needed to best understand the individual needs of each facility within the district. And our assessment for this facilities master plan illustrated that we have $3.5 billion worth of need in 2019 dollars across our whole entire district portfolio. As such, we identified two project types based on the need to address the longstanding inequities within our district facilities, but also address health, safety, and compliance issues in all facilities. As such, we identified Type B projects, which we also call vision projects, for major renovation or campus replacement projects that are identified through the equity index, and Type A projects to address any immediate site needs based on the condition of the facility itself. So the equity index prioritizes funding for major renovation and campus replacement projects, like I've just said, at sites identified through the percentage of LCAP students at those school sites and neighborhood equity indicators as defined by the Berkeley Opportunity Map. These are the two primary indicators for identifying such projects over the use of traditional methods of enrollment, capacity, or the condition of facilities itself. The direction to develop the first of its kind facilities master plan was given by the leadership of the board and the superintendent. As such, staff were tasked with addressing previous facilities funding inequities through the development of an internal district equity indices to help identify funding priorities based on the level of need, as outlined by board resolution number 3113 in 2019 that called for the Measure H ballot initiative. Here's the why behind the call for the equity indices in facilities. Capital project expenditure data was presented to the board in the time leading up to the passage of the board resolution 3113 that illustrated a disparity in facilities funding, and district leadership recognized that the system was previously inequitable by design. The district realized that a robust process had to be in place to confront and interrupt the inequities that existed. The critical components of interrupting those inequities in facilities master planning included ensuring a robust and authentic community engagement process was in place, the hiring of an equity consultant to assist in the planning process, centering the needs of our students first and foremost based on their level of need, and looking beyond our own property lines in order to center neighborhood need in the planning process. And lastly, minimizing those traditional methods for identifying capital projects. The move towards identifying major renovations and complete campus renewals through an equity index is critical in addressing improved student outcomes. As peer-reviewed research has shown, school facilities matter when working to address student achievement, and that students in lower income zip codes are more likely to attend schools in poor condition and that receive less school facilities funding. And now, I want to show you a short video on the importance of school facilities planning where we look beyond our property lines through more of an urban planning lens. I also want to share that this video highlights the work of Dr. Hernandez from UC Davis, a sociologist, who was also one of our community members heavily engaged in the facilities master planning process. After this short ad.
The neighborhoods where we grow up can determine the trajectory of our lives, from the money we earn to how long we live. And it's not by accident. America was built this way. And Jesus Hernandez has mapped those inequalities block by block.
I was able to measure every social ill in the city.
Like what?
Where are your dropouts from high school? Where are the people who get the flu? Where are the people who use more water than others?
His work has shown that all of it connects back to one factor over and over again, and that factor is race.
You have these racial patterns that represent a geography of where we shifted our people over the period of 100 years in developing the city. And we can pretty much do this in every city in the United States.
Why? Well, about a century ago, legal language was often written into the deeds of houses, prohibiting selling them to people who weren't white. They were called race covenants, and they built racism into the housing system across the country.
White neighborhoods wound up with advantages that still shape modern cities.
We met Hernandez in Sacramento, Land Park to be exact, one of the city's oldest and wealthiest neighborhoods.
And this was one of the areas when it first started developing where race covenants were first used in Sacramento. And so this is where you start seeing this divide between neighborhoods start to happen.
A neighborhood like this one enjoys all the benefits of a century of preferential treatment and public investment. It gets a light rail service. Businesses choose to relocate here. It has bike lanes, bus service, everything that a city dweller would want. Let's compare two neighborhoods just 3 miles apart. This is Land Park. This is South City Farms. 77.3% of people living in Land Park are white. In South City Farms, 8% are white, 52% are Latino, and 9% are black. 40% of people in Land Park have at least a 4-year degree. In fact, 28% have a master's degree or higher. In South City Farms, only 2.3% graduated from college.
In Land Park, 71% of people own their home. In South City Farms, only 25% do. A person living in Land Park is likely to live 10 years longer than someone living in South City Farms. And while average household income in Land Park is over $132,000 a year, in South City Farms, it's just $28,000.
Tell me about this neighborhood in contrast to the other one we saw.
So what you see here is that concentration of race and poverty and every other social ill that you see that's associated with divestment.
You may think to yourself, sure, good and bad neighborhoods, so what? Well, again, it's not coincidence. If you look at the race covenant neighborhoods across Sacramento or any city, the pattern is shocking. In these neighborhoods of Sacramento, education, home ownership, health are all different than these neighborhoods. What's the difference? Well, these neighborhoods were exclusive to whites under race covenants from at least 1913 to 1948 when the covenants became illegal. And banks and lenders used the race of non-white owners to downgrade home values until 1978. That means all that time, white neighborhoods accumulated wealth, political clout, public investment, while other neighborhoods, which also paid their share of taxes, received little or no investment. They even lost money. Other systems deepened the divide. The Federal Housing Administration, which was created to make home loans affordable after the Great Depression, refused to back them in African American neighborhoods, a policy called redlining. And while the GI Bill helped white Americans get low-interest mortgages, it shut out African American vets.
Now you see these people here that have to leave the neighborhood for better resources rather than stay here. And when they leave the neighborhood, they actually take their checkbook with them. When they go by in another neighborhood, when they go to get health care in another neighborhood, when they go to school in another neighborhood.
Because they don't have any of those things here. They can't walk here to a grocery store, a school, a hospital.
That's exactly right.
When a neighborhood has had so little money for so long, it takes superhuman effort to provide what the community needs. The city closed this elementary school in 2013. It's now home to a nonprofit called La Familia, run by Rachel Rios.
So when you look at what healthy communities look like, you look at the support services that families can go to, libraries, public transportation, parks, beautiful trees. And when you look at our community, you don't see that. You don't see an investment. You see nonprofits trying to fill in the gap as best we can.
So you provide the only play field in this whole neighborhood?
Yeah, there's not a park here, so this is it.
Racism is not just about our individual attitudes. It's built into our systems.
It's not as blatant as I'm going to oppress this community. It's more subtle than that, and that's the problem with it, is that it is more subtle, and we seem to accept it because it is subtle. So how is it that this community doesn't deserve to have the bus stop? How is it that this community doesn't deserve to have a park? That's where the systemic racism comes into place.
So how do we change nearly a century of inequality? This is not a problem the people of a neighborhood can change on their own, Hernandez says.
You have to directly intervene in the mechanisms that create this inequality.
You have to put your thumb on the scale in some way and change it.
You have to put your stick in the spokes and stop that bicycle from moving. And if you don't do that, that racial spatial wealth gap will continue to widen.
And neighborhoods like this continue to get left behind.
Correct.
Hey, NBC News viewers,
Thank you. So, it's hard to get composure after that video. The district started this facilities master planning process by forming a diverse 30-person steering committee consisting of community leaders, parents, academics, like you saw there, and administrators to ensure their DNA was embedded into the overall facilities master planning process. We really knew authentic engagement would be needed to establish the trust and the credibility with the community in order to address the long-standing mistrust in how capital dollars were previously spent. I also highlighted one of my favorite sayings over the past couple of years since being involved so intimately in this process, and it's, don't make decisions about us without us. And we've really taken that to heart within facilities. And it shows here in the facilities master plan update that you're seeing, but really everything that we're doing in facilities now. But with the help of the equity consultants, the steering committee developed 4 key principles to guide the overall facilities planning process. Those 4 principles included ensuring that voices of students, parents, and community members inform district planning. 2, utilizing student, neighborhood, and school site demographic data as opposed to enrollment numbers. 3, closely aligning the goals of the LCAP with facilities priorities. And 4, being visionary as well as practical. For example, fully implementing even modest projects and accounting for long-term maintenance and operational costs in that as well. And so school design research on best practices also used to develop the educational specifications, or what we call the educational petals, that will be included in all Type A visionary projects. These 6 petals include learning environments, inquiry and experiential learning, individualized supports, fitness and athletics, safety and security, and dining experience and nutrition. And then to start to wrap it up, as all the components within the facilities master plan, here you'll find the facilities condition assessment that we mentioned that helps us prioritize immediate health and safety risks, areas of improvement for accessibility, and deficient components of our campus, such as a leaky roof. Again, the information does not drive the identification of the major renovation or campus replacement projects, but does serve as a data set for the identification and prioritization of those Type A projects. And with that, we have gained notable recognition for this facilities master plan. I did want to tell you I was going through a year-long cohort with California Coalition for Adequate School Housing as we were doing this, and I was very excited to come to my cohort and explain how we were doing our facilities master plan. And I was legitimately ridiculed by my colleagues and said, no, that doesn't make any sense. You're not doing it right. You're clearly not from facilities originally. But now, about this time last year, those same colleagues gave our district the highest award possible for the facilities master plan. Not only that, we've been asked to give workshops and presentations to CASBO, CSBA, CASH coming up in a couple weeks, Architects for Learning Environments, and we've also received numerous calls from districts across the nation asking us how we did it. So now a little on how we began to implement the facilities master plan. The facilities master plan has led staff to addressing or identifying 3 initial Type B vision projects that will positively impact 4 school programs. Those include Edward Kimball, Cesar Chavez, Nicholas, and Oak Ridge Elementaries. Edward Kimball and Cesar Chavez are located on the same property and collectively serve grades transitional kindergarten through grade 6. Cesar Chavez, Nicholas, and Oak Ridge Elementaries are 3 of the 13 schools within the district that are categorized as having the highest percent of LCAP students. Again, Chavez, Nicholas, and Oak Ridge are categorized as having the highest percentage of LCAP target students. Edward Kimball is categorized as still having a high percent of LCAP target students, but has been identified in this set of projects due to it being co-located on an undersized property with Chavez Elementary. And Chavez Elementary is a 100% portable site. These 3 projects are located in neighborhoods identified as needing the greatest need of capital investment and categorized by the Berkeley Opportunity Map as being neighborhoods with high segregation and poverty. There are 14 schools within the district located in such neighborhoods, and neighborhoods with high segregation and poverty are defined as neighborhoods in California that consistently meet standards for both poverty, which is 30% of the population below the federal poverty line, and racial segregation, which is defined as an overrepresentation of people of color relative to the county. In addition to the equity indicators, these sites were identified based on further needs that were not represented in the data shown on this slide. Just as I stated, Kimball and Chavez are two single-story campuses co-located on one undersized property, and Chavez is a full 100% portable site. Nicholas Elementary also currently has one of the worst facility conditions out of all other sites within the district. And lastly, Oak Ridge has a very small, tight parking lot directly off of the very busy MLK Boulevard that creates a very unsafe environment for students, families, and staff. These issues and concerns elevated these projects to the top of the list to complete for our renovation. Now, stakeholder engagement, as I've shared, is really important in this process and continues to be so. And these projects were approached with that same thought process in mind. We began our stakeholder engagement of these projects in 3 parts. First, we took the design teams to the central office for a full day of meetings with all department leaders to hear about the programming and how we should design new schools around best practices and our LCAP goals for each of their areas of oversight. Second, we began the site staff engagement process by organizing tours to nearby new school builds of staff to come witness and begin collecting data from staff on what they'd prefer to see in those designs at their school sites. We will be coming back to the school site staff as well when we start talking about and designing the interior spaces of their classrooms to make sure we get that feedback. But then lastly, the third part was that we successfully engaged the surrounding communities through parent coffee chats, back to school nights, hosting town hall meetings, going to community fairs, and in order to engage and solicit their feedback and the feedback of their students as well. We've been able to rethink what community engagement looks like for the facilities team, and we have experienced noted success in the level of engagement we've received, and we'll be focusing on engaging those various stakeholders throughout the rest of the design process and into the construction phase. And it is our intent to carry on that award-winning effort of the facilities master plan and the authentic community engagement portion. Now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Ralston, so he can talk about future project type A.
Thank you, Nathaniel. Type A projects address facility condition needs. Using the FMP and the facilities condition reports contained as part of it, it guides us to projects and scopes at sites that address health and safety, items that improve learning environments, and address liabilities in the district facilities that we have categorized in some themes. First one, campus renewal projects identified using the FMP's facility assessment address items that are associated with health and safety, such as restroom repairs, HVAC systems, roof beyond repair. Other parts associated with campus renewals would be ADA compliance, such as path of travel, classroom interior renovations, and technology and low voltage upgrades to serve emerging educational tools for students and staff to connect, and fire alarm upgrades. Safety and security. Continue with themes associated with Type A projects or safety and security. These types of projects would work to remove tripping hazards and broken concrete, and also provide funding to place strategic fencing and create a single point of entry during school hours. This funding may also add technology to entry points of schools to allow staff to safely screen visitors onto campus. Sustainability was a consistent message received during the community input phase of the FMP. This funding will help reduce the district carbon footprint and provide opportunities to educate about the effects of climate change. During the month of April, our sustainability manager, Chamberlain Seacrest, will be presenting to this board on the department's progress to achieve high goals of reducing our impact on the planet. Finally, Measure H will help support the district by lowering risk and liabilities through our facilities. Title IX compliance is going to be some of the projects we are kicking off this spring in designing softball and baseball fields that provide equal access to top-of-the-line facilities to showcase our student athletes and provide a competitive training ground for success. Our bond also funds technology that could either improve our network and infrastructure or in devices used directly by our students.
Thank you. And before we go to my colleagues, do we have any public comment?
We do. We have Terrence Gladney signed up.
All right, Terrence, welcome. And once again, happy Black History Month.
Thank you. Same. Just I want to put on record, district staff was awarded for the equity index, but without Dr. Hernandez and myself being a continuous push to infuse equity in the process and calling for a district to meet the challenge, which staff did, it would not exist. This district is forever indebted to Dr. Hernandez, not only for his work around this, but also the previous school closures and his honest and thoughtful and thorough assessment of what neighborhoods look like and how they were impacted with the absence of those neighborhood schools. With the equity index, the core planning facility, the core planning committee, our vision was for it to really be the example for the rest of the district, including academics and every other component of this district, to be inclusive and look at the actual impacts on students from neighborhoods. So while it is uplifted in this work, I heard many components of the academic office's presentation in which the same lens can be applied, and I hope that it will be. And that's a challenge that we need to meet as a community and as a district for us to really move the needle. Because when we talk about not only, the resources of schools and jobs and businesses, resources to neighborhoods are their children that are highly brilliant. The value of a high performing and a brilliant child to their neighborhood school is much greater than it would be at an open enrollment school across the way or across the district. So we have to have an open and honest conversation about open enrollment and the impact that it has. We can't talk about neighborhood schools and the buildings that are there on that campus without talking about the students that are being commuted across the district. One example, for example, is San Brannon. We lost our principal, Mr. Flores. We went from October until last month, 4 interview panels to locate a leader. Mr. Zarate came from Crocker Riverside. They had 1 interview panel in about 2 weeks, and they were able to replace their leadership. When we talked to students with Mr. Zarate, and I asked them deeply, what was the impact of not having a permanent leader on campus? It impacted student behavior, student expectations were lowered amongst themselves, and the culture and climate of that campus was tremendously impacted. So when we're talking about what our schools look like in the neighborhood, it's not surprising to anyone that Crocker was able to secure a principal that quickly, because it's a desired campus that we uplift and put in a spotlight.
Thank you, Ms. Gladden. Can we have your last comments?
Yeah, we can all do better. So again, this is a start. But if we don't apply the same line of thinking across everything and every component of our district, then this just sits in a silo like so many other things in the past of this district. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your contribution along with Mr. Hernandez. Very appreciated. Going into
President Rhodes, we have one more. April Ibarra.
Oh yeah, let's go. Good to see you again, April.
Good evening again. I want to say thank you to the work of many parents like Terrence Gladney that pushed this work forward. I also want to say thank you to, I don't often say nice words to Nathan, but today I'm going to say thank you for your great work on this.
I'm changing your name.
All
Your
right.
name is Nathan now.
So with that said, I just want to really highlight Oak Ridge and all of its greatness over the last years. I actually went to Oak Ridge Elementary as a student myself. I'm not going to age myself, but I'll say in the 90s. And basically, I was there when they wanted to close Oak Ridge Elementary School. I was there when our cafeteria ceiling caved in, and we didn't have a cafeteria for a school year. And the lunch ladies had to take lunch to every classroom every day. And so I was there when they brought us the portables that were supposed to be temporary, but are still there to this day. So to hear this presentation is really near and dear to my heart, but I want to highlight something else here. When we talk about community schools and community engagement, I want to highlight that Oak Ridge is exemplary when it comes to that. And I'm sad that Daniel Roletti isn't here, but he was here earlier. The work that he invested into that school is a testament in the outcome, and Nathan can probably speak to this more than I can, the community that came out to participate in that. That was because the admin worked together with his staff, and they really utilized parent-teacher home visits to build trust and gain that trust from the community to where now you see community building community, community respecting teachers, valuing them. And so even though they're not a community school, really look to what they did during their SIG grant for those 5 years and take that in, because that is why I have a high standard for community engagement, because I know that it can be done. Thank you.
Amazing. Yes, and there's a lot of beautiful work that happened during the SIG grant and a lot of great communities across. So thank you so much for that, April. Do we have any other comments? Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues. We're going to have Member Jean go first.
Oh, I got in there first this time. All right, simple question. One thing I want to make very clear, because I don't think general public understands this about school funding, not a single dime that comes to us on an annual basis is intended for these kinds of projects, right? People don't recognize that our facilities needs are not funded annually, that we have to go other places for our resources to be able to do this kind of work. So I'm excited we have a master plan, but the next question becomes, and how are we funding this? So I know that there are some bonds that have passed. I know there's a little bit in capital outlay, but again, that's not the intent for this. So if you can just give us a little bit of info, I'm not looking for the whole presentation, but where are we looking at bonds? Because as always, there's never enough money, we know this. So what are just our thoughts around all of that?
Yeah, so first and foremost, we passed a $750 million bond in March 2020. We sold the first series of that bond last summer, and we're using that first sale on those 3 projects that we shared now. We also have other capital project funding mechanisms such as developer fees. We're working with any kind of state reimbursements. For example, Cesar Chavez Elementary being of aged portables, there is reimbursement funds through the state for that as well. So we're trying to capitalize that as much as possible. But those only get us so far in our $3.5 billion worth of need in 2019 dollars, so higher today.
Thank you.
Is that, you have any more? Okay. Going to Member Villa.
Also easy, I promise. That video obviously was hard to watch, but obviously nobody in this room is shocked. I mean, that's not shocking information, but again, this is the critical part where we're doing better. You know, better you do better. And I know the work that you guys have done over the last couple of years, every time you've come up here to present, it's always addressing the inequities, addressing the issues, but you have solutions, and we're continuing to build on those solutions. So I'm keeping that in my focus of things are changing, and especially at Nicholas, I mean, we know that they're so excited for that. It's going to impact it's so important to me. But again, it's also to be, you know, I understand how our community and folks can be critical of the work, but again, if we just keep bringing this to the attention of the community and having these conversations and continuously telling everybody what we're doing, and maybe even I'd love to see more photos of the school sites when, again, we've talked about this, when the progression starts, to show where the dollars are being put to use and the impacts that, you know, kids moving and hear from the students and hear from the families. Two last things. On slide 11, I really appreciate you guys breaking down those critical steps, because I know we've talked, but number 2 was critical. That was really helpful for our district to hear from somebody about the process that wasn't necessarily us. Capacity to inform decisions. I love all that. Last thing, I'm just going to keep it short. These future projects, this is the best part. I mean, solar native landscaping really makes me happy. I mean, that's going to be amazing. People have asked, how many times have we heard community members come to public comment and ask about solar? We're doing that. So that's going to be a big impact. So I'm really excited to learn more about these projects. And obviously, like I've said before, anything that you guys can bring to these presentations, I want to see the photos. I want to see the fuzzies too, because it is hard, but it's important for people to see the actual work that's being done. And not everybody has the time to go to all these schools and see it, but anything that you guys can share would be helpful. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Member Villa. The next pictures that you're probably going to see are more community engagement efforts. We won't start breaking ground until this summer on those three projects. And I'm glad to hear that you are also all about native plants and landscaping, because I am too, right, Chris?
Come to my backyard, we'll talk about it. Thank you, guys.
Okay, MVP, Member Phillips.
Nathan, I want to thank you for showing the perspective of imbalance and inequity. It does make me think when we do these improvements to schools that are in, neighborhoods with imbalance, I always have this thought in my head, like, who are we improving these schools for? And even though, we can look at gentrification, I can talk about certain areas in the city where many of the people who might benefit from this wonderful change that happens in some of their neighborhood schools aren't there anymore. And I worry, not that we're doing something wrong. I know that we're doing something good. But, just like what the video was explaining, is that some people are going to have to learn to do without. And it doesn't mean that we're taking anything away. It just means that they're getting less of what they've always gotten, so that those who are not getting or have not gotten, are getting something good, which makes me think, because Terrence Gladney does this to me every time. He stands up there and he starts talking about something, and my brain starts clicking, and it says neighborhood schools. And that imbalance, and I know I'm going to see a shift. I'm going to see a school rebuilt, and I'm going to see a lot of people who are new to the neighborhood, moving their kids to that fantastic new school. And I want to feel confident in the fact that, we are continuing to address the racial disparity that put us in this position in the first place. Why we're having to do this now, why this is such an effort for us when, some folks have and some folks don't. But I really want, maybe at some point, we can, I guess, get into addressing how we support enrollment of neighborhood kids into our neighborhood schools, because those schools are there for them. That helps with so many of the problems that families encounter, when they're marginalized. So I appreciate what you're doing. Please keep up with the historical perspective, because again, some people just need to feel uncomfortable. And I think it is definitely something that, we as a board might want to consider. I don't know if there's any issues with, I think state of California is kind of like that open enrollment, and we joined in, and it seemed like a good idea at the time. I wonder if there is some way for, us as a district to talk about not being part of that program anymore. So that's just, I'm putting that up in the air. Because I want to be able to see all the kids in my neighborhood who should be in the neighborhood still. And we have programs to try and bring them back. We're working with UC Davis, but I really would like to see that be a benefit for all. So thank you very much for that perspective. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I want to say it was really surprising and nice to hear at Oak Ridge. There's second and third generation families in that school, like just pouring out of that school. And so seeing that and being able to do this is good. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. And now we're going to go to Member Singh.
Thank you for the presentation. Hey, Nathaniel. I just want to acknowledge, well, first of all, I've seen that video before. I've seen that news clip, and I know a little bit about race covenants. So I think one thing I would acknowledge is that this, to me, this speaks to the fact that I may represent Area 2, but in reality, we have to be a voice for all 40,000 students. And I think that's a really important thing for us to understand here. Just because I mean, technically, I probably live in a neighborhood where in 1945, I wouldn't be allowed to buy a house there. But I do live there now. But that in and of itself does not erase racism or inequities or anything else. I also know that something that Gracie just mentioned is I have been speaking about neighborhood schools for weeks now. I have been going on neighborhood school tours. I've been visiting the neighborhood schools, and one thing that I always want to say, and I want to say it out loud and publicly, is that the goal should be to bring those qualities, those resources to the schools in those neighborhoods for those communities. It is not a goal to push everybody into 1 or 2 or 3 quote unquote great schools. We need to have a great district, not a couple of great schools. So I appreciate the work you're doing. And I agree with Terrence said this earlier. This is the type of equity work that we need to see across our district. This is great that it's happening in this specific space, but if this is implemented across the board, I want to know how I can be helpful and continue to be an advocate for the entire district and for all 40,000 students, and work together with you. So just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, wait. Did you say you wanted to go again? Remember MVP? Okay. So MVP would like to speak. You shall listen.
I want to point out something that just jumped out at me at that inequitable by design map. There's a school called West Campus, and there's an elementary school called Mark Twain. As well, there is a school called Leonardo da Vinci, and there's a school called Hollywood Park. And I look at the capital improvements that have been made in the last 10 years. Mark Twain and Hollywood Park, if I'm correct, have a tiny white dot in the middle of a bright red and a bright orange dot, which means that between 106,000 and say 1.6 million has been put forward to those 2 schools that might fall into the underperforming category. And between, 1.6 to 3.7 and 6.9 to 13.6 million have been put into those schools. So I appreciate that this map says a lot more than I think people can really understand. I see Leotata Floyd, next to health professions. That's kind of flipped on the other side because many improvements have been made at Leotata. But I just want to make sure that, if people get to a point where they are feeling uncomfortable about the fact that maybe they're losing something, email them this map. Draw happy circles around those tiny white circles and make sure that people understand that that is true inequity, and we have to make sure that is not happening in this district.
Thank you, MVP. This was an informational item only, so we appreciate you and your time. Continue the great work. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Okay. Going to item 9.0. Board Workshop, Strategic Plan, and other initiatives. 9.1, SEIU Sunshine Proposal. This is an informational item only. Who's coming up? Is it you, Dulcinea?
No, it's just Member Rhodes, because it's an information item, it is included in the board agenda. This is simply indicating that SEIU has informed us of the article that they are going to be negotiating with us. Yeah. So, but the next item is one that we.
And this one, board. Okay. 10.1, District SCTA Sunshine Proposal. It says Pam, but I believe it's you, Dulcinea.
All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Good evening, President Rhodes, members of the board, and Superintendent Aguilar. My name is Dulcinea Grantham, and I serve as outside legal counsel for the district, and I'm a member of the district's negotiations team with SCTA for those negotiations. I'm here filling in for Pamela Manwiller tonight, the district's lead negotiator who had a family matter to attend to. I'm pleased to be here with you tonight to share the district's initial proposal, sometimes called a sunshine proposal, for reopener negotiations with SCTA. On April 3rd, 2022, the district and SCTA reached an agreement on collective bargaining terms for the period of July 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2022. That agreement resolved completely negotiations for the 2019-2020 school year and for the 2020-2021 school year. But in that agreement, the district and SCTA agreed to resume negotiations for the 22-23 school year with specific articles to be discussed. So in that agreement, the district and SCTA agreed that Article 12, which addresses employee compensation, would be automatically opened. The agreement also indicated that the district and SCTA could each select one additional article to negotiate in the 22-23 school year. SCTA sunshined in December. The district is sunshining tonight. So before you tonight is the district's initial proposal for these reopener negotiations for the 22-23 school year. This initial proposal that's before you recognizes that Article 12 is open on employee compensation, and then it identifies the district selected article as Article 8, which relates to employee transfers. The district respectfully requests that the governing board adopt the district's initial proposal for these reopener negotiations after the public hearing and board discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to my colleagues, do we have any public comment on this
We do not.
item? We do not. Do we have any board comment on this item? Seeing none. This is we have to move into public hearing. Is that public hearing? Am I correct? And make sure I'm right on that.
That was public hearing. Now you
Now
can
we're going
move
to
it to action.
Perfection. So, Superintendent.
Member Villa,
Aye.
Member Jean,
Aye.
Member Rhodes,
Aye.
Member Singh,
Aye.
Member Phillips, Member Kayada.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you guys very much. Now moving to consent agenda 11.0. We want to, do we have any thing for consent agenda? Thank you. We're gonna go to, Jasjeet went first, so we'll go to Jasjeet first, Member Singh, and then we'll go to Member Jean.
So I'd like to pull, well, it's very specific. It's the first item. How do I list this? Can I see yours? Like 11 point. Sorry, I had the number and now I lost it.
Thank you.
What is it? 11.1A.
11.1A, you would like to pull for discussion?
Yes, please. I spilled water.
Okay. That's good. And do we need a second for that motion? No.
Second.
Okay. Oh, we don't need one.
We don't need one.
So, okay, so that is 11.1A. So are you asking to pull 11.1A and approve all other items on the consent agenda? Say it again. I'm asking.
Point of order.
Say it again.
Point of order.
What
Are we pulling all of A or are we pulling specific somethings out?
That's what I'm gonna.
Can we name those so we can approve the rest of them? Cami Kelly? And
That's the one you're pulling?
the one I'm pulling is for Margarita Maldonado.
So these are two different. Are you suggesting to pull both of those, or we're doing two different items?
Sure, I'll pull both.
Go for it.
Thank you.
Make it easy.
Okay, so we're going to pull item 11 point A, the contracts between Cami Key and Ms. Maldonado. Correct, for board discussion.
Correct.
Thank you. And we're going to then move forward to approve all other on the consent agenda. Correct, Member Singh?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have a second for that? Yes? Board vote? All approve? Go ahead.
Member Villa?
No.
Member Jean?
Aye.
Member Rhodes?
Aye.
Member Singh?
Aye.
Member Phillips?
Aye.
Member Kayada?
Can I ask a question now before I vote? I just wanted to clarify for Member Villa, we're voting on the rest of them, is that not on the motion to pull?
We're voting on
On approving everything else? Right now, we're,
everything else?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
sorry, I
That's
just
my
didn't
fault.
believe that that was what you intended to do. so-
Yes, thank you for calling that out.
Yeah.
Aye on that motion. Thank you.
Okay, and an aye for me as well.
Okay, and then our student preferential as well.
I
We
got
didn't do
confused
that.
there, clearly.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, so we are going to have, Member Singh, the floor is yours for discussion on those two items.
I will just mention, I'll talk about the first item, which is, my computer's acting up, so I don't have a physical copy. It's fine. I've read this. I think for me, I'd like us to all have a discussion or at least a conversation about this contract, which is with Cami Calais. And I see that the new contract amount is in the amount of $198,000. I also have an understanding that Ms. Calais was or has done work with us in the past. I just want to figure out, I think I mentioned this to Superintendent, about the possibility of bringing folks on who want to do a limited role work as a part-time employee instead of an independent contractor. I think it would be more beneficial to us to hire folks as staff, and that's kind of where my head is headed about why I don't feel comfortable just offering up a independent contractor contract.
Let me, Member Singh, I'm going to just turn it to Chief Ramos, just to give a little bit of context. Ms. Ramos, of course, just being respectful of information that I know that you're privy to, but just trying to answer the question about the circumstances that led us to this decision.
Yes, and this has nothing to do with her previous employment. This is simply, she's being, this work is to oversee the ESSER funds that are one-time funds, and this is being paid for out of ESSER. It's not to replace her previous position. That has been filled by someone else. But with all these one-time dollars that we did get, we just have a ton of workload in trying to process all of those payments and bringing in all of those services and buying all of those products, and we do need some help in that area. Also with the compliance and the reporting that goes along with those funds. And so it's a temporary fix. It's not a position that's intended to last beyond Ms. Calais' work ending once all the ESSER funds are spent.
Oh, it's still on. The contract of $198,000, that's specifically for Ms. Calais. Is there a time on that? Is it a one-year contract?
It's
or
a
is
1
it?
year. We renew every year.
Okay,
Yes.
but is Ms. Calais working, is it an independent contractor contract, or is she working, are we asking her to work 40 hours a week, or a certain amount of hours per week, or what is it looking like?
No, independent contractors, we don't set their schedule. We just give her an assignment, and they produce that assignment. And they're responsible for tracking that, invoicing us, and then, we pay that invoice, like any other contractor.
Yeah,
It's for work.
for 1 year.
For 1 year, yeah, assuming that that's all we need, and we'll assess at that time. We know that ESSER 3 doesn't expire until the following year, but we don't do multiple year contracts. Yeah, it may be that she may not want to work for us next year, or we may have a change in, who we want to contract with for that work.
And last question, is there a specific reason for the increase from 98,000 to 198,000? Is this any different from the original contract?
Yes, we utilized all of her hours, all of her time. So we need to increase her contract in order for her to continue to work for us and continue the ESSER work. So what happens is that we have to report on our spending to the federal government, to the state, on our ESSER fund, our one-time funds. And then the other thing we need to do, because the ESSER 3 required a formal plan that was approved by the board, so there's probably about maybe 20 line items, and so those have to be monitored for spending to make sure that we're hitting those targets, and if not, we need to work with our department. So that's what that position is doing as well. We don't have staff that can take that on. It was quite a task.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Member Singh. And then we're going to go to Member Jean.
All right. Is there an increase in cost when we do consultants as opposed to hiring in-house? Are we paying consultants the equivalent of what we'd be paying employees, or do we tend to pay them more?
It depends. It depends. Yeah. It
There
just
is
really
inconsistency.
No,
In the case
yeah.
of these two that we've pulled, what would be your approximation? Are we paying
Yeah.
about what we'd pay
Yeah, and I
an in-house
provided
employee or more?
So,
I would say that it does depend, Member Jean. In the case of Ms. Calais, Chief Ramos can answer that question. In the case of the other contract, Ms. Maldonado, if you take the equivalent of a position that is full-time, I believe it's lower.
correct. And yeah, and I can, yeah. So in the case of Ms. Calais, when we look at it and we compare what that position was earning, that was 2 years ago when she was an employee back in 2019. It's pretty much equivalent to that in 2019. Since then, we've had salary increases. And so, it's not going to be an apples to apples. But so I just looked at that salary. And I believe in the other case of Ms. Maldonado and comparing her to work that was done in-house, I believe that rate was lower than that person who was doing that similar type of work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just wanting to be true to our budget, right?
Sure.
The next, kind of two other thoughts I have, just broadly speaking, it's really important to me, and I think what makes education thrive is when people are invested in the students and in the schools and in the communities, and that their heart and their connection is there. And I'm new to this job, but hearing about all of our outside consultants makes me wonder if that can be the same equivalent. There's a layer of investment when it's your school district and it's your students than when you're an outside consultant that's coming in. So that's just one of those larger questions that's in my head, which is why I wanted to discuss these two things specifically. Additionally, I was surprised to see that the Maldonado one had been put right back in the consent agenda without it being agendized or reaching out and chatting with all of us about that. It had been pulled a couple of weeks back, which indicated that it was not a non-controversial space. And to my understanding, consent agenda is intended to be a space for non-controversial, we're not going to pull stuff. And you're noticing that those of us new here are pulling things because we have concerns about what has been in the consent agenda. And so I would ask that these be moved to a further, future meeting and be agendized so that we can get information and get public comment and ensure that we have what we need as a board to feel confident in approving these. So I move that these be moved to a future meeting and be agendized.
Agendized, formally agendized. Do we have, she has a motion, is there a second on that motion?
Hey, President Rose, we have one public comment here on this item.
Oh, okay. There's comments here and there's a public comment. Ms. Molesky, would you want to come or do you want this conversation? Okay, is there, okay, so she's going to defer.
You should take the public comment and then have further board discussion and then take the motion.
So there's a motion on the table, but please, Ms. Molesky, we apologize for doing this before you.
That's okay. I strongly urge you to vote on that motion to have further discussion about these contracts. I'm very disturbed that the summary that you receive here and consistent with what the chief business officer is telling you is that this will be a total of $198,000 for Cami Calais and that the requested increase is $100,000. But if you look in your packet buried around here, you'll see the actual agreement that Ms. Ramos and Cami Calais will be signing. And in this agreement, it says it'll be increased $180,000 for a total of $278,000 for this outside consultant to just handle some ESSER funds. I think that this is outrageous. This needs to be discussed publicly. It needs to be clarified what exactly you're paying to this person and for what. And when this chief business officer comes up here and says 198, when the agreement that she's going to sign says 278, that is very disturbing. So thank you for your time, and I hope that you continue with the motion.
Okay, do we have any other public comment? Don't sneak them on me, man.
We do not have any more.
Right. All right. So we have a motion on the floor. I know, but I have to listen to the motion first. Can you restate the motion, please?
I move that these two contracts be tabled into a future meeting and be formally agendized.
We have a second on that motion. Superintendent? Nope.
We have a board discussion. You have a board member who has a comment.
Lo siento.
That's okay.
I got you. All right, so we have Mr. Kayada and then Ms. Villa and Mr. Singh.
So yeah, I do have a couple comments, and at the end, I would like to offer an alternative motion, so I will get to that. If you all recall, I was the one who pulled these two contracts several weeks ago. I share in Member Jean's concern that it's inappropriate that they ended up back on the consent calendar when the previous discussion would indicate that they are not non-controversial and should have been agendized separately. I would also like to address basically the motion that we accepted last time, which was to allow the board members individually to receive more information. I would maintain my position then, despite voting for that, out of deference to the rest of the board, that I don't think that's the appropriate way to handle things like this. I think if there's a question that we have as a board, this is something that we shouldn't take offline and discuss individually. This is something that should be made available to the public. If there's some sensitive information, sure, that can be one-on-one conversations. But the information that Ms. Ramos just gave and information that I've received about these two contracts, I think should have been part of the record. I had asked the superintendent really not too much, right? Just one paragraph so that the public has a general sense of what we would be able to learn behind closed doors. I think we need to do our business in public. So to that, I would like to basically relay the information that I received, which I had hoped would have been stated here in writing for the record for the public. For Cami Calais' contract, my understanding is that we have a specific need that is unable to be filled by Ms. Ramos's current staff. There are multiple staff openings in Ms. Ramos's department, and she is impacted to the extent that she needs that. To me, that is a satisfactory explanation, and I would be happy to vote. Well, not happy, I would say. I don't think we should be encouraging independent contracting, but I would be willing to vote yes on this contract. I think we do need those services. And it appears that we are unable to hire independently staff to handle that, whether full-time or part-time. For Ms. Maldonado's contract, my understanding is that she was hired to serve an integral role in negotiations with SEIU 10-1. I was not involved in approving that original contract, but to the extent that we have a continuing need for that, I do not think that that needs to be served by independent contractors. I think we should be bringing our labor negotiations in-house. And I think the fact that we are hiring external contractors to do this role actually becomes sort of a chicken and the egg situation where we're telling staff that we don't trust them to handle this. It has been relayed to me that we have trouble having staff be in some of these meetings with negotiations, and therefore it's needed to have independent contractors. And I would reject that as a reason to continue focusing on independent contracting. If this is a need that we need with staff at our department head level, we have openings. When we go out for them, this should be something that is a key competency we're looking for, because I think it is very important that negotiations are handled in-house with people who are invested in the district, as Member Jean had previously mentioned. Independent contractors aren't necessarily going to be aligned with our long-term vision for what we need. And I'm worried that it does lead to increasing acrimony in labor negotiations that we could hopefully avoid if we brought this in-house and we had more direct control over it by people who are invested in our district. Just to bring it back a little bit to a higher level, when I originally pulled these two items, my concern was not about even these two independent people. It was more a question about what is our district priority in terms of independent contracting, and I'm glad we've been able to have that conversation. What I'm capturing here is a majority of the board is expressed between now and the previous meeting an intent to try to not independent contract activities that should be done by the board. And I would hope that the district, the superintendent, and staff would understand that that is the intention of the board moving forward, and that when we do independent contract, we can do so when it's appropriate, but that explanation be provided to the public, not something that needs to be taken offline for board members. And then to the, I feel like I've been talking for a while, to the mention that I had for how I would like to offer an alternative motion, I don't think that we need to bring this back. I think at this point we have the information. We all have been able to gather the information over the past 3 weeks as originally proposed. I think we know about why we have these contracts, and I think we have enough information to vote tonight. So my alternative motion, whether now or at the appropriate time, would be to approve the contract for Cami Calais and to vote no on the contract for Margarita Maldonado. Again, nothing about either of these individuals as people, just the nature of what the services that our district should be offered by independent contractors and what needs we currently have. And I believe that we do have a need for Ms. Calais, and we do not have an existing need for Ms. Maldonado. So thank you.
All right, Member Villa.
I appreciate that, Member Kayada. Your insight of the two different individuals. I agree and I don't agree, but I just want to bring to the table that when we halt these type of contracts, and this is fair that our board is having these discussions, that is our job to do, but this impacts services. And how does that impact our students? So that's something to kind of keep in the back of our mind. And we've had ample opportunities as a board to do our research before we get to this point. And if we're still unclear, we need to take accountability as a board and do better, in my opinion. And ESSER work is huge. I know that you had indicated that, but that work is not just 1 or 2, 3 bullet points. That is an extensive, we've had so many presentations and have done so many 2-bys. That is a lot of work. And so our job as a board is to support our staff when they're asking for help, because our community counts on us. And again, remember that these do impact students and these do impact services. And our long-term goal is to support all of our staff and our students in our community. So that's what I have to say about that.
Thank you, Member Villa. We're going to go to Member Singh. I think he's the last person on our docket.
So, sounds like what I'm hearing is that we have enough information to vote. So that's good to know if we all feel that we understand what the folks bring to the table. My question is, the information here says that this contract for Ms. Maldonado was an extension for a contract from October 24th, 2022. It is February 16th, 2023, so November, December, January. So we are almost 4 months into a contract that was never approved in the first place. I would like to get information on how this contract, who approved the contract, or who approved Ms. Maldonado to continue working since October 24th, 2022, without any approval.
Yeah, thank you, Member Singh. Certainly, that would fall on me as having made that decision, and I will certainly take some of your comments as a collective and figure out how to continue to make some improvements based on those comments about these contracts as we deem them necessary, but also making sure that those steps are followed and that we can appropriately report to the board where there is that need, but also make sure that we are following tighter process in terms of contract renewals and such. Those are pieces that we will certainly look into more closely and more carefully.
Thank you. And I also agree that everything should be focused on our students. I also think that $170,000 for a consultant can go towards the hiring of 3 or 4 support staff so that our staff who is hired in-house to do the work to serve our students can be relieved of some additional duties so that they can focus on the important work. So I do believe this funding, which is an unrestricted funds, could be used to hire 2, 3, even 4 support staff members for our teams so that they can get the work done. I just don't feel comfortable knowing that we are paying this much money to outside consultants, and we are not allowing our staff to thrive at their highest level. So that's it. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Member Singh. That's not the last. Member Jean.
Hi. Does Member Kayada have a second for his motion?
Second.
Because at the moment, mine is currently the one on the floor.
Yeah.
Oh,
So do we
I'll
have-
second Member Kayada's motion.
Okay.
Okay.
So speaking to the idea of making the decision tonight, there are 2 reasons why I can't even say 2, there's too many. My brain's in lots of different spaces. One, being new to the board and wanting the information to feel confident in the decisions that I make. I'm a firm believer in making sure that when you do the disruptions that we talk about that are so important, we know that we're disrupting in the appropriate way. As you said, we don't want, as Member Villa said, we don't want to cause delays and problems unnecessarily. So my instinct would be to say, let's continue doing what we're doing, but we have all voiced, we have a lot of concerns and we need more information and we need to address those concerns. On the other side of it, I'm hesitant to make the decision tonight for 2 reasons. One, as Member Singh pointed out, we have somebody working without a contract and we're being asked to go back to October to approve a contract and move forward. And that just feels really messy to me and I want more details and information on all of that. And then in looking at the contract with Calais, when you look at the first page, it does say that the original contract was $98,000, the requested increase was $100,000, which means the new contract amount is $198,000. But then when I go to the actual page, the original contract was $98,000. The contract amount prior to this change order is $98,000. The amount of this change order is $180,000, and the new contract amount is $278,000. So I don't feel comfortable voting on this until we have clarity on what those numbers are and what's going on there. So I don't think I can make this decision tonight, and if you force me to, my vote will be no.
Okay. Thank you, Member.
So I still, I'm arguing for my original motion of let's move it forward to make sure we get what we need before we make this decision.
Got it. Okay, so the motions on the floor is Member Jean's motion to take these. Kayada, sorry.
President Rhodes, may I?
Yeah, you can intervene.
Member Kayada, I'd address this to you. Your motion that's currently pending technically is to approve the Calais contract and to not approve the Maldonado contract, at which case, if action is taken on 2 separate contracts, you would need to have separate action instead of looping them together. So might I suggest that is your motion to act on both contracts tonight versus Member Jean's motion, which was to bring them back as a separate item? Is that clear that your motion that's currently pending that Member Singh seconded would be to take action tonight on both contracts?
Yes, my motion is to have 2 votes on those 2 contracts.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. And so, President Rhodes, that the motion that is currently pending before the board is to take action tonight on both contracts.
Okay. And
Can I just clarify? So my motion now is that we do take action and then we would follow up with the votes. So we're not actually voting on the 2. There'd be like 3 votes.
Right. Yes, correct.
That is correct.
Yours is
If it passes, then it would be 3 votes.
That is correct.
Yours is to take action tonight, and it was seconded by Member Singh. Member Jean's request is to take action.
Right, but Member Kayada's motion,
It's
having
first.
been seconded, is now on the floor and at
Exactly.
issue.
Okay.
But there's a comment from Member Singh.
I forgot. I'll just say this. Tara brings up an important point, which was after I seconded, which is that discrepancy in the amount. So I also don't feel comfortable unless, Rose, you want to come up and explain the 278 real quick. That would be helpful.
Yep, apologies for that error, and it is an error in the attachment. That was a typo. And that was corrected, and I'm sorry, probably in the shuffle of submitting the corrected documents, it got missed. But the correct amount is on the cover sheet for, her original contract was $98,000. We requested a $100,000 increase for a new total of $198,000, not the $270,000. That is not correct. So this is the correct amount. My apologies for that. And I just wanted to clarify that this contract is being paid for with the restricted funds, the ESSER $3, not the unrestricted general fund. So just wanted to add that for clarity.
I think Tara Jean, you're still on here, Tara?
I didn't intend to be.
Okay.
One comment I would make, I also have concerns that any ESSER funds were designed to get to students to make sure they were helping with COVID, and we're now paying someone oversight into that from those funds. The decision was made previously, and that was the approach. We're not arguing that, but we are being asked to now double that amount from those same ESSER funds instead of making sure they get to students. Again, these are why I want to agendize it and have this conversation.
Yeah, and I would, well, I don't know if I can say, I agree with you. But okay, we will do a vote.
Correct. We're taking a vote on Member Kayada's motion.
And
There has been a
Kayada's motion is to vote on both things tonight and not
Correct.
bring them back.
That is correct.
All right. Superintendent. Oh, yeah, student preferential vote.
No.
Superintendent.
Yes. Member Villa?
Aye.
Member Jean?
No.
Member Rhodes?
No.
Member Singh?
Aye.
Member Phillips? No. Member Kayada?
Aye.
There is not a majority vote. The motion does not pass.
Okay. Now going to Member Jean's item. So we're basically going to go to bring them back, discussion item at a future board meeting. Student preferential.
It would be an action item as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, Superintendent.
Member Villa?
No.
Member Jean?
Aye.
Member Rhodes?
Aye.
Member Singh?
Aye.
Member Phillips? Member Kayada?
No.
Okay, motion passes. We will bring this back as an action item at a later board meeting. Going to item 12.0. Also, I would like to say on item 12.1, the enrollment reports are not included in the packet and will be included in the next regular board meeting packet on March 2nd. So just a note for that where it says that one, that's not in the packet. Item 13.0, future board meeting dates and locations. March 2nd, March 16th will be here, obviously. And on 14.0, whoa. We got people. Sorry. I'm like going through it. Tara, please go ahead.
We don't have on here, board members get to make comments, but that usually is part of our agenda. So I did have a few comments I would like to make if that's okay.
Yes, before we end.
Before we adjourn,
100%.
yes.
And then, is that the same for you, Member Villa? Yes. Yes, okay. So,
Normally we have 10 minutes for that and it didn't get on today's agenda.
no problem. And we'll make sure that have that on the agenda for you guys.
Excellent.
Thank you. Member Jean, go ahead.
Thank you. So first off, SCTA, thank you for your presentation and your plans and vision. We know that recruitment and retaining our staff is a vital Vital, like that is the number one issue we've got to take care of here. You mentioned in your presentation the Code of Ethical International Recruitment and Employment of Teachers. Could you get us all a copy of that so we could peruse it? Thank you. Second, I just wanted to publicly let everybody know we've been having a lot of conversations around community schools and that a 2-by has been scheduled to make sure that we get information. And I'm looking forward to starting deeper conversations with folks on the board around that. We've also had a 2-by scheduled around, and it's more complex than this, but it goes back to staffing. And we're beginning to enter that season where we have to figure out what our staffing is moving forward. And that as we do that and as we make those big decisions, things like split classes come up. Things like where positions shift start coming up. And we have a 2-by coming up to help get all of us information around those issues and around the budget realities of that. I've been receiving emails from members in my community who have been told that there may be some split classes next year, and they're very concerned about that. We all know that a split class is not necessarily the ideal learning environment for students. We also know that when it comes to staffing and student-teacher ratios and enrollment, it gets very complex as we make those decisions. And so I'm looking forward to that 2-by to get additional info as we enter this season of, as a board, having to make hard decisions around that. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was we already saw that we mentioned that communications left off the agenda, but that included our lovely student who didn't have a chance to report. I don't know if you have anything to share with us today. We also didn't have our labor partners or our other community groups on there or the superintendents. So I'm not sure what happened in this agenda, but I just wanted to make sure we don't do that again because those communications are an important part of collaboration and working together. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you so much, and I totally agree. Talked to John and David earlier when we first came in. We saw that, so know that it will be on there next time. Thank you for calling us in. And Member Villa.
I just wanted to update the community if you're listening, if you watch this again, but the West I always do that. I know. The West Campus Foundation for Excellence Gala of Love and Peace is taking place on February 25th. You can still get your tickets. It's going to be a great event, a lot of raffle items that will go obviously back to the school for students. And I just wanted to remind, which I hope all of my fellow board members and our staff, and I'm sure all of us will be there, Hiram Johnson, our community fair, Wide Open Walls. I've started getting information of how many murals this time, and it's a lot. So that'll be 12 to 4 at Hiram Johnson this weekend. I know the work has already started today. Started today. It'll go until, I believe, Sunday or Monday. So I hope that we see you all there on Saturday.
And then we have student board member McGurk. Oh, no, okay. Yeah, super excited about this weekend. Thank you to all of my colleagues for your input. Now, going to item 14.0, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yo, can I speak?
Second?
I'm still speaking. I didn't get to speak.
Bro, you're not in the queue.
Yeah, I told you.
Are you in the queue?
I looked at you.
Are you playing with me, man?
No.
Can you put yourself in the queue, please?
She did it. But I was there.
My goodness.
I told you.
Okay, so Member Singh.
Gosh. First of all, yes, Wide Open Walls. So Hiram Johnson, I know Member Villa just said that, but I also want to remind that all our labor partners are invited to join. So please make sure you're there with your stuff, your booth, whatever it is. David, I'm looking at you for Saturday. I also want to mention that I've been receiving a lot of messages about TK, and I know that we're supposed to have an official announcement coming up. Is that right, Superintendent? Am I okay to state the date? Is that all right with you? Can I
Yes,
just blast
correct.
that out? So February 21st is when we are looking to launch the TK enrollment process online. Is that correct? So the 21st. I'm sure that'll be coming out. Really excited about that. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Superintendent, for getting that done. And then I'd also just like to mention that we are going to be moving forward with the Know Your Rights program for our students at Sac City Unified. I am in conversation with the Black Parallel School Board and a couple of other organizations. We're likely looking at March 2nd. But as those dates near and get finalized, I'll be reaching back out to you, Superintendent, so that we can make sure we have Hiram Johnson as a location for the Know Your Rights event. And then also that we do a blast through email and make sure parents and folks are notified about the event itself. That's it. Thank you.
Are you? I was making sure that he was sure that he was done. I mean, hey, I clear you out. You just press your button back, man. Like we're just gonna. It must be late. It must be late. So. We did do that. We're on item 14.0. Unless anybody wants to hop in the queue, please hop in the queue if you're going to hop in the queue. Not say you want to be in the queue and not in the queue. So once again, we had a motion second. All in favor? Aye. Oh, meeting adjourned.